Hello, and welcome back to the 10-Minute Professional, the podcast designed to help you navigate the political landscape of corporate America while maintaining your sanity and hopefully not becoming a soulless monster. My name is Gabe, I am your host, and I believe personal and professional development needs to happen around the clock. Time is money, and money's needed for life, so let's not waste any time and get to work so we can get back to focusing on our lives. For today's conversation, we're going to have our first scenario discussion, and there is no subject more appropriate than whatever your company or organization calls performance reviews. Reviews are a necessity in office work, yet are something I've never looked forward to as either a people manager or individual contributor. Considering they are the primary means through which we are evaluated and have a direct impact on our salary and continued employment, emotions can run high on both sides of the review. Depending upon your role, you will likely have specific measurables, metrics, deliverables, or key performance indicators you will be measured against. However, these are not the sole components of your evaluation. Whether it's soft skills, strategic aspects, or something else, some component of your evaluation will be left to your manager or another party's discretion. Today, we're discussing how to handle a negative performance review you disagree with, how to proceed in the moment, as well as how to minimize the potential of finding yourself in this specific scenario. First, let's begin by discussing actions we can take to mitigate finding ourselves in this circumstance. After all, the best way to prevent a problem is to do all we can to avoid it in the first place. I worked at multiple companies in the software as a service and nonprofit sectors, and at every organization, I was not expected to do anything in advance of a performance review or one-on-one with my manager. I do not believe in attending meetings without agendas, nor do I believe in having undocumented conversations in the office, unless of course they are of the social variety. This means for any meeting I attended, I have my laptop open with an agenda and a notepad or some kind of note-taking equivalent. I did this as both an individual contributor and manager for two reasons. One, obviously, to cover myself. And two, to ensure there was a clear record, to ensure no confusion on either side. During my tenure in office roles, I was a staunch advocate of using shared docs or shared pages only accessible by myself and the other party for this purpose. And I like to do this for two reasons again. One, you can quickly find the view and edit history if necessary, and two, again, you have a clear record. If you're just taking your own notes on your personal notepad or something, that isn't something which can be submitted to human resources because it wasn't agreed to in advance by both parties. So I don't see the value of taking personal notes in the context of one-on-ones. I've used spreadsheets and shared docs for this purpose, and anytime questions came up which weren't timely or high impact, I'd add them to my shared doc to be discussed during the next one-on-one. This is pretty helpful if you don't have an agenda to begin with. If the meeting was canceled for whatever reason, I'd attempt to reschedule and denote when and why the meeting was canceled. This leaves a clear record if another party is responsible for repeated cancellations. And this can easily be found in email, your whatever instant messenger group your organization uses. We've discussed the reasoning behind using a shared doc for regular one-on-ones. But now, let's cover what goes on the actual document. I'm a big fan of the STAR method of interviewing: situation, task, action, and result. I structure my one-on-one docs the same way: situation or circumstance, the task or specific question that I need addressed, the action item for either myself or the other party with, of course, a deadline, and the result or follow-up. The trick is making each of these as objective as possible, meaning omitting personal or emotional language. While the doc is only to be shared between the two relevant parties, whenever in the office, I always operate under the worst possible scenario expectations. In this case, this doc needs to be reviewed by human resources or whatever due to a lawsuit. If feedback is positive, you point that out. If feedback is critical, you dictate what the issue is and steps to rectify. We cover our bases in advance by prepping and taking notes to remove emotion and feelings from the equation. When everything is black and white, expectations have been set, and there's been a constant feedback loop, we have something to point to if we're blindsided with a less than stellar review. Now that we've covered how to cover our bases in advance, let's move on to how we respond in the moment. If you're hit with a low review score, it's natural to feel defensive. This is your livelihood being discussed after all. However, getting defensive, raising your voice, using dismissive or unprofessional language, these are all actions which only harm you in the long run. Rather, we need to keep the focus on metrics, numbers, or the specific criteria we are evaluated against. This places the onus on the other party to prove their evaluation is steeped in data, accurate, and to illustrate their point with concrete examples. This is why we need to be aware of the deliverables or measurables we're evaluated against. Like Scott Steiner said, the numbers don't lie. But as someone who majored in statistics and was a digital marketer for years, I know full well numbers can be manipulated. If I'm told I'm not meeting the metrics or key performance indicators, I want to see the numbers, and more importantly, I want to see how they are calculated. If I'm not meeting the numbers, I need to be able to pinpoint root cause. Maybe I'm spending too much time on unrelated tasks. Maybe the numbers aren't pragmatic and they're not even reachable and the bar is set too high. Or maybe there's a need for training. If that's the case, I work with the other party to come up with a plan to rectify. I discuss measurables to monitor progress, and I ensure everything is documented. I take all this actions because I know it's quite a bit, because I need to be seen as collaborative and a good colleague. And if the other party is sandbagging me, every interaction needs to be documented to illustrate that. If the numbers are good, but perhaps there was a scenario I didn't handle the way someone would have liked, or my judgment was not aligned with leadership or the organization overall, then I shift my focus to process and documentation. If this was a truly unique circumstance, because we feel that everything is unique in the office, unless I was particularly egregious, offensive, or unprofessional, then context is king. If cross-functional partners and clients are happy or not, well, why? Does this one-off, which was truly a unique circumstance, need to be documented for future reference? Or perhaps there was a judgment conflict or an issue of prioritization. For example, let's say I prioritize the client experience, but the other party says process should have been the main focus. If that's the case, hey, I understand, I'll document it. We keep the focus on the actions that were taken, the priorities of the organization, and any feedback we got from another party. We also ensure all of this is documented in a clearly visible manner. We do all of this because it can keep us from getting hit with information overload or otherwise making an emotional decision which does us no favors in the workplace. Performance reviews are a fact of life in the office, and ensuring we are organized and adequately prepared makes the conversation much easier to navigate. Organization is a key skill to develop to both hold ourselves and others accountable. Being organized also helps us develop a bias toward data-driven decision-making instead of relying on feelings. I look forward to our next discussion, and I hope you stay happy, healthy, positive, and above all, confident.